You know what day it is, guys. It's not hump day. It's not Wednesday, but I got two humps right here. Hump one, hump two. It is cards and cake, and this is going to be a very special episode because I'm joined by a fellow personal finance guy. You know him as the personal finance dad here on YouTube. His friends know him as Dustin, and I'm sure his kids know him as Dad. But I want to say, what's up, guys? Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm really excited about this episode to talk to personal finance dad because we share a lot of similar beliefs, but also sports are back. And so I'm going to look through these comments. I saw one about, David, dude, the Lightning game right now is driving me crazy. I got my Lightning shirt on and I was hoping it would end going into a fifth overtime. But before I get in, I got my Select High Life this week. And I want to give a quick shout out to a couple people before we dive in. Yurtsum Yaniel, Zach, Mubsy, Arhuck, King James, The Goat, Vegas Finds 777, Shelly B. You are like my token female on here, unless there's another one of you. But Shelly's always on here. Ryan from Rockland, Geo, HT Sports, Airnas, Strategize. There you are, David Hunter, Gabriel, Broad Street Puck, Robert Copeland. You guys have joined the newsletter list, so I really appreciate you guys. If you want to get shouted out in the future, just go to the website, thecomebackcardinvestor.com, get my weekly newsletter, and we'll go from there. But now let me introduce to you Dustin, a.k.a. the personal finance dad. Dustin, what's up, man? How are you doing?
Hey, Brad. How's it going?
Doing great. I'm going to have to look at all these comments here. Dustin, you came on about 4 minutes ago and I was scrambling. I'm like, what the hell am I going to talk about by myself? Fortunately, I was watching the Lightning game. I have caught up with watching some Luka and some Zion for the first time since getting back into sports. So we can touch on that. Before I go into your background, I just want to give a little appreciation to Alec. I see you on there. I appreciate you. Got the cake right here for you, buddy. I'm not going to save it for you. I'm going to eat it all, but just being honest. Jerry, what's up, man? Matt 14K, Golden Boy Stern. Dude, why 2 slices? Because this is the biggest one they have at the cake shop. And I don't want to buy 5 slices at $9 a piece. I can reinvest that into cards. So these are the biggest slices that they have for $8 a piece. That's as far as my budget goes. Fantasy Football Card Quest, what's good? Ziggy No, Mike C, let's get to work. That's right. I didn't do my catchphrase. Welcome back. Now let's get to work. Dustin, all right, thanks for joining me. Let's just go into it, man, because I see you go by the personal finance dad. I'm about personal finance. Give us a bit of context as to who you are and what brought you into the sports card world.
Yeah, well, what brought me into the sports card world, I kind of have a similar story as a lot of people my age. I'm almost 40 next year. So this is part of I kind of joke about my midlife crisis, but I don't necessarily mean that as a negative thing. I could be doing worse things, turning 40, but, kind of going back to my childhood with, cards in the late 80s, early 90s. That was really what every kid did back then. You were kind of weird if you didn't collect cards. And so that was something where a couple of years ago, I got back into it. And at first I was kind of collecting some of the cards that I couldn't afford as a kid. But then I noticed that there was some opportunities where it was like, like the game has changed a little bit with graded cards and sealed wax. And so it kind of piqued my interest. And I also did with comic books as well. I noticed that there was comic books were being graded. And so I was looking at kind of, old Fantastic Four and old Spider-Man, and Spawn was a big comic that I collected when I was a kid. So it was kind of multifaceted, just collectibles in general, going back to my childhood, and noticed that there was some opportunities to flip and to make money and also collect. So yeah, that's how I got back into it a couple of years ago.
Well, it's interesting because when you're around, you see that comment.
Yeah,
got to shout out Ziggy, especially when it's like an
off-color comment. My wife she just went to bed, but I'm gonna yell up at her like, "Hey, it could be worse."
Yeah. Hey, seriously, there's a lot of bad things going on in this world, and sports cards. If that's the worst of it, if like an obsession with sports cards is the worst out of all the crazy stuff going on, then I'm fine with that, and everyone else should be too. But Alec, I got the beer right here for you. Donald, dude, go Lightning, man! This is our year. We've got to have it. But it's funny because now at 33 years old, I'm looking everywhere I can to tap into my childhood. It feels there's like a certain point where 25-ish to 30, just my childhood turned into like this lifetime ago, while in my teen years and early 20s, I still remembered it. And when I got into sports cards back in February, it was like, holy crap, I could literally touch my childhood. I could literally reconnect and look at the same cards, but now being able to use like a more mature mentality around it and see that money can exchange hands, and just having learned so many lessons over the last 15, 20 years since getting out of cards, I was like, you know what? Hold on, this could actually be sustainable and fun versus just all about the money or all about the fun. It looked like that perfect middle ground. So you got back into it, and you're into comic books and some other stuff right here. Tell us a bit about your station and what inspired you to create it.
Sure. Yeah. So I saw, so as far as channels go, Jeff at Sports Card Investor was the one that I saw popped up in July of last year. And I believe I had also seen maybe PSA Collector, and there were some other ones that I had seen, but Jeff was the first one that had popped up where he really addressed investing, as a key word, as a, he didn't hide away from it. He came out with it and talked about it. And so I watched his shows, from July on, really enjoyed it. And then, a few others kind of popped up. And then, kind of as a side note on this, I also have been following Gary Vee for years. I didn't get into cards because of Gary Vee. It just so happened that he's about my age. He's a little bit older than me, but we kind of got in at the same time, same sort of deal. And so I found that out about him later. But the one thing that Gary Vee pretty much tells everybody as part of his advice is to make content, or make more content if you're making it. And then if you're making more, make even more content. So it's always about making content. And I've never been, I'm not a TV person. I'm somewhat introverted, honestly. And so it wasn't something I was planning on doing. And then I don't know if it was a combination of COVID and the quarantine, happening, where I had some more free time. And then it was like, finally all that Gary Vee talk hit me, and I'm like, you know what, why am I not doing this? And also I couldn't get enough of that hobby content. I really enjoyed it. And so I was thinking, I wish they would, and I was thinking to myself, I wish they'd maybe talk about this topic or that topic, or it'd be cool to see some other twists and turns. And so that kind of, all those things culminated into me starting the channel, and it just kind of built from there.
Yeah, it's funny how COVID really was a tipping point for a lot of us, because it pretty much forced us into looking for a new form of entertainment. And like for myself, I was like, I'm stuck inside. I can't do anything I want outside. So what's on the computer, and what can I do that's productive? Because there's a point where I'm like, all right, well, I can watch movies, I could do that, but I want to enjoy the movie because I've felt productive. And then I was like, well, let me learn more about cards. And I remember binge watching every Sports Card Investor podcast or video as quickly as possible, because I had some money saved up. And I said, all right, I really want to invest, and I'm not going to have this amount of time again. So I just want to know exactly every little bit I can, just to have an edge in investing and not screw up. And so it's so funny, late February was when it started. And then once COVID hit, it was just open the floodgates. Stuck at home, it's miserable, but why not create content? And it's cool because both of our channels, and pretty much most channels out there in this space, has had a lot of growth in a little bit amount, a short period of time, because there is so much demand for content right now. But the one thing that people might ask you is, why is your station called the Personal Finance Dad? Why not the Card Dude or Card Dad or something like that? Yeah.
And I know that this is kind of for me, it's kind of a legacy question. It might sound kind of strange to say it like that, because, in a way it's a hobby right now, the way that it is. I mean, I've been doing it for 4.5, 5 months. But I really enjoyed it. And it's something where my youngest, my son, has autism, and, he doesn't have an extreme form of autism. It's fairly mild, but it's still something that we have to manage. And then my 7-year-old, my daughter's bouncing off the walls, but they think it's the absolute coolest that I'm on TV. So if nothing else, my kids think I'm cool, and it's something to where, like, hey, look, when I'm a grandpa one day, eventually when I'm 80 years old, and they're like, hey, what were you like 50 years ago? I can be like, well, just go online. There's 10,000 videos of me talking about whatever. But, I went with the Personal Finance Dad because I wanted it to be more general, in case I was, I wanted to be able to talk about all topics. So my big kind of passion is collectibles. I really love learning about people investing in, a graded video game for $100,000, or, comic books that are, that are $1 million, sports cards, etc. And so those are things that really, really interest me. But at the same time, like my wife and I are in the middle of a real estate transaction where we're going to buy some land. I'd like to be able to, film some of that, talk about that as well. So it's being able to tie it all together. And so I know that personal finance data is very, very general, but it's hopefully just to kind of capture all those things.
Okay. So let me ask you, where do you see your focus going in the future? Do you think you're going to hone in on cards more, or do you want to bring in those other elements? Because it's funny, I had a personal finance station, which it was a real estate related station. Then I turned it into a personal finance one. And because I didn't have, for one, I didn't have the momentum from this station, but also because it wasn't fun. Because like finance is typically pretty boring, right? It's
very boring.
Like, I'm in debt, I don't have money, like all that serious stuff that people are dealing with. And yet when you apply it to cards, or use cards as examples of stocks and companies and things like that, it can get really fun.
Oh, super fun. Yeah. No, I see it. The way I see it is more collectibles focused, with a heavy emphasis on collectibles. But then, occasionally we talk about, real estate here, or, stocks, bonds here or there, or like you said, kind of comparing all those things together. I don't really want to dig into, Roth IRAs, the pros and cons, et cetera. I'm not interested in really going that route.
It's just not boring. If you compare Roth IRA to like LeBron James, or you know what I mean? Like if you find the equivalent, like that new tech stock or that cannabis stock is like Kyle Kuzma, or like some guy off the bench that can come in and score 35. All right, now it's fun. Now
maybe we'll be talking about LeBron James RPAs, in your Roth IRA at some point. Maybe that'll be the conversation.
Well, it's funny because I spoke to a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago who's he worked for Goldman Sachs, and they hired him because of his background in esports. He was a Diablo 2 champion back in like 2006 or something, and they hired him. And he's talking about the conversations he's having there, where people are owning memorabilia or high-end cards, and you can buy percentages of it. So it's literally, here's a $1 million RPA. Well, I can't afford that, but for $10,000, I'll invest in that RPA. And it's kind of like a syndication in real estate. And it's so fascinating with the more money that floods in, the different opportunities that present themselves. But okay, let's dive into a bit of some strategy and some principles, because with your background in personal finance, I feel like a lot of people they're not being very disciplined, or there's a couple things that are just a bit loose that at one point or another will come back to bite them in the ass. So with your background specifically, what are the lessons you've learned, and what are some of the things that you'd really like to teach others?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So on the one hand, I think like all of us, we're trying to get ahead of the curve as far as, who's going to be hot next, or which set is going to be hot next, or just kind of, different strategies around that. However, I mean, with basketball cards, let's just use that as an example. I don't really stray off the beaten path as far as which sets I'm buying. I typically only buy Prism, Optic, and Mosaic and Select. Those are the only 4 sets I touch. I do buy vintage basketball as well to kind of diversify a little bit. But to be perfectly honest, I mean, vintage cards are there. It's not as fun because it's not as volatile right now. So what I'm trying to do is take advantage of the volatility if I can, whereas vintage is certainly more, I don't want to call it safe, but I mean, it just, boring. It typically, it's a little bit more on that boring side, because yes, those cards trend up, and they've trended up a lot over the last 12 months, but that's simply a function of all cards really being very popular. I mean, if you go back, vintage cards have just kind of eked up, over time. It's like buying bonds. I mean, you just kind of sit on them, and they're fairly safe. So yes, I do have some vintage, but the majority of the stuff I'm working with now are vintage. For strategy, I mean, when I first got in, and I think that for a lot of people, it's changed because, just like you talked about, I watched a lot of SCI videos, and Jeff will even say, like, what he was talking about a year ago might not be the way to go now. I mean, it's kind of like the card market. We're in uncharted territory. To where it was like only buy rookie cards, and now we've got second year, and now we've got first year unis, and now we've got, kind of different things to look at. So my strategy has kind of evolved over time, and I am trying to get ahead of a lot of those things. For basketball cards, for modern cards, I talk about it in a lot of my videos. I usually use LeBron James as my multiplier, because if you look at the price of, let's just say, 2019 Optic Hollows, you can look at LeBron James's price, and then you look at all the other players, and whichever players you like, you can kind of figure out, okay, well, he's $5, LeBron's $400, I feel good about this, or maybe maybe I'll pass or whatever. Maybe I'm not seeing something. So, I'm always trying to kind of get ahead of that game a little bit. And I don't know, prices have exploded so much to where if I'm going to go back and look at an Anthony Davis rookie card, unless it's going to be a set, a lot of people are kind of going to other sets now, where it's like Prism is too expensive. So now we're moving down the line. And I would rather just kind of go in a different direction than maybe buy, a more obscure set, of like an Anthony Davis rookie. But I mean, everyone's got different strategies. So it's wide open.
Yeah, I love that, because for me, without knowing about recent sports much, like now I'm getting back in, it's fun. But the last couple months, I know that was my weakness, but studying trends has been the fun part. Like, why are you buying him? And just like Jordan was the multiplier before, I look at LeBron cards and go, damn, if a LeBron base card is $100, then why is Kevin Durant's only $5? Right? You know what I mean? Like you feel like, all right, I get it. LeBron's LeBron, but maybe Kevin Durant should be 20. That's been more of my background or the things that intrigue me, because it's not even knowing about the player. It's knowing, okay, who is the standard? Where's the benchmark? And who are the second, third, fourth, and what should be the trend line for them? And that's been really fun for me. And even with Tom Brady of football, where I look at, okay, Tom Brady, he would be the LeBron James. What is Tom Brady going for in 2012 Prism? Okay, it's going for, let's say, $150. Okay, well, Drew Brees, your boy Drew Brees, it's got to be like $30, right? Obviously not. There's a shift in caliber, or when you're the GOAT, it's not like, well, you're 10% better, so it's 10% higher. It's like, all right, no, you're maybe 2 to 3 times more, but still that should be consistent. So if we look at what 2012 Prism is, and some sets where the data is out there on a lot of these players, we should be able to gauge that and apply that to other sets. So I want you to go over a couple things one more time. The sets that you focus on: Prism, Select, Optic, and was it Mosaic?
Yes.
And what's your reasoning with Mosaic? Because I'm looking for the next one. I know the 3 are there. Mosaic is the one that intrigued me, but because it's so new, I have a bit of hesitation, even though I like it. So what's your take on Mosaic?
I don't know. It's really interesting. And I was texting with a couple other guys that I talk about about cards that I've just met over the last 6 months. But I remember buying Mosaic at the end of last year, and they were not. I mean, I'm not saying that they weren't like not in demand at all, but it seems like when that new release of Mosaic came out, that 1920 Mosaic, and nobody could get it. And then I remember seeing that there was like rumors that it was short printed because nobody could find it in stores. It just absolutely exploded. And then everybody was looking back at 1819 Mosaic, and then all of a sudden Mosaic was on fire. So I don't know if that was just a function of Mosaic's product release kind of came out during a really hot time in the card market. Another theory that I have, tell me what you think, because I like a lot of your thoughts too, as far you really think outside of the box as far as like pop culture. I see with like Mike Tyson cards and Colin Kaepernick cards. I really like that angle. But so part of my thinking is that 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, because this was an explosion, this was a time, between COVID and then a sports card explosion like we really haven't seen before, other than the junk wax era. Is it going to be something to where 20 years down the line, there's going to be kids that were 12 that are now your age, my age, that are like, man, I remember when I couldn't buy any Prism, like there was no Prism. And then they're going back and looking for 2019 Prism, or they're going, like, is this going to be a time period in the future where people are looking back, and not even just kids, but I think that adults too are going to look back and say like, man, I remember those sets, they were really hot. And so I'm also thinking like maybe I should be buying a lot more 2019-20 basketball singles, even if now of players that I like, not just random singles, but just because I think that over time these are going to be popular sets. Not as popular as maybe like 2012 Prism or 2012 Select, like those first series. I think 2012 Prism is going to be like 86 Fleer for this generation, for this coming generation.
Well, yeah, it's funny because I actually went to the Bullpen LA, the card shop here in LA, to drop off over 200 cards to get PSA graded. And this was my first submission. I just did it through them. I didn't have to get a membership. And I talked to the owner there for a while. And, it's interesting because he's owned the place for 20 years. So he gave me way more insight than what I would even know from studying a lot of YouTubers or podcasters, just because he's been in the business 20 years, while most of us are a couple years in. And he's talking about how Panini has to earn the rights after next year. So if Topps outbids Panini or something like that, Panini could be gone from basketball or football, or like that. That's the way it came across to me is, okay, how does that shake up everything? Do we really want a 2012 Prism if next year is the last year of Prism? And then all of a sudden there's the first year of Topps Chrome, LeBron James, the second coming, like second Topps Chrome or first Topps Chrome of Luka or any of those. It's interesting because there's so many moving pieces. And I'm just trying to figure it out. And I see people here. I want to answer Alex's question here. I saw one about Revolution as well, where Revolution was a card that I looked at. And I thought it was the first year Revolution. I thought was cool. It was really thin. That's the one complaint I had. It was thin, but it was a very cool looking card. While for me, 2012 Prism looks hideous in my book. It looks like straight up tinfoil with a cutout.
Chipotle.
Chipotle foil. I'm pretty sure that was their supplier in 2012 was Chipotle.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention Revolution. That's not a set that I buy a ton of, but I feel like that's a very undervalued set. There's some really good values there for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's what's interesting is when there's so much money entering the hobby, there's a lot of good angles to take. I mean, I've been buying up first year Revolution, first year Optic, first year, pretty much everything but hoops, just because I don't know. Like paper card just doesn't do much for me, even if it could be worthwhile. Just doesn't look that good. So if it fails, I want to at least look at it and like it. And like if it's paper, I just don't really care so much. Court Kings was another one. I was like, Court Kings is pretty good. It's just not shiny. What's your take on that one?
I don't know. You know what? I feel like there's already so many buying opportunities I'm not getting to between Optic, Mosaic, Revolution, those 4 or 5 sets that, I could buy Chronicles or I could buy some of the, other sets, but I don't know. I like Alex's question there. That's a really good question on the screen about, COVID.
Yeah, let's go back to that.
Consequences of COVID. It's a question because am I here?
Uh-oh.
All right.
Oh, yeah, there you are.
Can you hear me all right?
I hope your kid's not using the internet right now. Better not be streaming you on YouTube.
Uh-oh. All right. Am I still here?
Yeah. As long as your audio is good, we can pretty much make out your mouth movements.
All right. So yeah, I'm kind of concerned about, the money going away, the stimulus money and what that's going to mean for people that were on it. And also just, I don't know, I think there's going to be a lot of people that were affected financially. That I think there's going to be a lot of bankruptcies that come because of COVID. I mean, think about all the restaurants that shut down, all the people that own those restaurants, all the people that worked in those restaurants. I mean, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So would it shock me if pricing drops at, towards the end of the year because it's finally catching up? No, it wouldn't really shock me at all. I think that, for certain players on the high end, I think that a LeBron or maybe Luka's stuff, can hold value just because of the popularity. But, I don't know. I mean, I think that I wouldn't be shocked at all if it affected pricing.
See, it's interesting for me because I know we have stimulus money. We have a lot of loans where, you don't have to pay your student loans back right now. You don't have to, you can't get evicted. There's a lot of laws that are favoring people, which is great. However, that's not going to last forever. And then the question is, does the hobby outgrow what's going to happen to the economy, right? Because if the hobby can grow at a pace that is faster than what's going to be like a swift kick in the ass for a lot of people, then it might actually balance out. But that's the stat I would love to know the most is, of all the people that are buying, what is their situation in work, in finances. If everyone that was investing was pretty stable and they weren't taking care of a loved one financially, and they weren't in these situations, I'd be like, okay, I'll invest more and more because I know that person's not maxing out their credit card and it's going to get due. It's going to be called soon and they're just going to be out of the market when that person was the one that was buying from me because they were paying a premium. I need to know who exactly is in the hobby. So that's the interesting part. Now, I even had an idea as to, well, do I just sell off as much as possible by October, November? Because we got elections, we got a lot. Maybe I just sell off a bunch because I don't know. Once the stimulus is over, new election, I don't know. At the same time, if COVID keeps people indoors, if sports can continue, but people can't go on vacation, people can't do all these other things, maybe a lot of that money that, you know what, I was going to spend $3,000 on this vacation, but I can't even go to the game. So I'll just watch the game at home. And now my game will be sports cards. And it could be a great trade-off there. But there's so many different factors. I don't even know how to compute it all.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, and then the other part is because there's all the speculation on the sports bettors, you know, that have come into the market. Well, if we can get through football season and we still have the same amount of money or more coming into the card market, then that pretty much takes that off the table as far as, okay, well, the sports betting money is going back to sports betting because we'll have baseball, basketball, football. I mean, if those people were just in it because there was nothing to bet on and then they're out, then we should see some sort of there should be a consequence to that. And so if it just keeps on driving forward, that'll be another interesting variable to keep an eye on.
I think with the gambling, at least my feeling is that when people can gamble with cards versus traditional gambling and they're not tied to having to lose something right at the end of the day or at the end of the week or at the end of the year. And they could say, you know, this was my short-term flip, but it didn't pan out because he got injured, but I'll hold it until next year. I think that's amazing if you have that patience. Plus the idea of, okay, I can trade it for something else and I can also display it and have it. And I mean, the amount of stories too, like you have a couple kids and, you know, obviously there's some sort of bonding going on with you and your kids over sports cards. And that is a story that's getting more and more common. Me and my best friend, Fantasy Football Card Quest, we haven't talked this much since we were 16 years old. And, you know, guys my age, when you're like, not just calling once every 3 weeks, like, yo, what's up, man? Yeah, you see the game. Yeah, I hope all is good. See ya. But spending hours and hours a week with the same level of joy, I don't know what other activity, what other hobby would get us to this. So I feel like there's something there where if you're in long enough, and you're not purely focused on the money, right? Like I'm in partially for the money because the time is incredibly demanding to do all this. So I need to be able to sustain myself. But, you know, if you're in it for a hybrid of reasons, I feel like even if the market goes down, you'll still be in it. The people that are in it strictly for the money, though, you know, if the money dries up anywhere, they're out. That's at least my take.
Yeah, that's another interesting kind of variable to this. You know, it's the what percentage of people are in for the quick flips and what percentage of people are, you know, kind of in it like we are, where it's a combination of that, you know, investor collector mentality. I'd love to know. I mean, I guess it'll all kind of work itself out, but there's just so many moving parts. I think that's what makes it so interesting.
I think that's the hardest part, is because there's so many moving parts. It's really tough to predict. But that's also why I love looking at the trends and seeing, all right, let me just nail a couple of what I can see. And then the rest, I have no idea. But I think the one thing I want to always put forward in my videos and whatever, and I'm sure you'd agree, is just whatever you're investing, please make sure it's responsible. You know, please, like, you know, drink responsibly, invest in sports cards responsibly. Because at the same time,
eat your Pop-Tarts responsibly.
Oh shit, that's a Pop-Tart. It looked like a roofing shingle that you just ripped off the roof, and there's like glue at the bottom.
I just grabbed something out of the yard.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It's not exactly $19 bougie LA cake, but you know.
Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah,
this cost me like
my daughter's gonna be so ticked. She's gonna get up and she's gonna think that there's Pop-Tarts downstairs. Well, sucker. Yeah.
Dude, I mean, talk about reliving childhood. I haven't had a Pop-Tart or Dr. Pepper since I was 12 years old. But anyway, let's look at a couple questions here. What questions do you have for Dustin? Let me know in the comments section here. And it's funny because Damian Lillard, I saw a lot of comments about Damian Lillard. He was one guy I was investing in before even watching the NBA because I looked at the stats and I looked at the last 3 years. I said, who are the top scorers for the last 3 or 4 years? And Lillard was like number 10, number 8, number 11, number 6. And I was like, all right, this guy is really good. I saw highlights of him. And then when I saw his comments after that game to who's that clown for that one team? He's like an absolute Patrick Beverly. I was like, I'm like, dude, you're a clown. And the comments Damian Lillard had, I thought was awesome. And of course, the cards I had a hoops rookie, I had a brilliance rookie. I have like 10 of them on Comp C, but I sold one of each. And then now I just mark up the next price to see if that hits market value. But it's funny because I'm like, where were you guys with Damian Lillard months ago? You can't like invest in him now that he's had his 50+ point game and has his comments and all that. You invest before that happens.
Dame, Trae Young, and Devin Booker are kind of like 3 guys that are just, you know, prolific scorers that just they haven't been on great teams. And so, they're really interesting buys, you know, because it's like you definitely, and I'll say I missed the boat. I think I've got one Damon Lillard card, and it's a 2016 Optic Hollow. But, you know, outside of that, I don't have much of him. Just focused on other players. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Dame's one of those guys, and he's got that 2012 rookie card that's shot through the roof. So
the Prism, I have 12 of his selects, and I bought them for about $10 to $12 each when I was getting into
nice.
In fact, I sent one to this guy right here, but he's in Canada, so I hope to God he gets it because I didn't even add a tracking number. I have a picture of the package, Jason. This guy, Jason, sent me. He's like, I really like your station. And this is when I had like 50 subscribers. He's like, subscriber number 1 or 2. He's like, I really like your station. Can I send you cards? Half the time I'm thinking, I hope to God I'm not going to get like used underwear or like a locket of hair or something. But he sent me a Luca.
Put the logo in the basket.
Jason sent me a Luca, a Zion, and like 50 other cards. A Griffey, Acuna. So I was like, dude, this, you know, what was so cool about that is I was like, damn, this is just like when I was a kid and I would trade cards for the hell of it because the trading made it fun too. So Jason, I'll always remember that. But anyway, so let's talk about a couple strategies or players that you're targeting now. We have NHL playoffs in full swing. We have baseball going. We have football about to start. I saw someone here ask about what quarterbacks. Yeah, and I'll put up Jerry's comment here. What are the players you're targeting now that almost all the sports are going on?
Yeah, I've got a few things going on right now. So I feel like I'll answer it a couple different ways. I have bought, and I showed it in a mail day, but I've been buying a lot more Devin Booker lately, just because they've just been so red hot. I mean, the Suns are 6-0, 5-0, 6-0, and I just feel like kid's 23 years old. And so I've actually only been buying 2019 Optic Hollows and 2019 Silver Prisms. So in my mind, I'm just thinking like, and I'll buy some colored stuff as well. But in basketball cards, very popular, obviously like sets or subsets are Optic Hollow, Silver Prism. That's what people want. That's the stuff that seems to appreciate. So even though that's not a rookie card of Booker, I still like that. I mean, I'm picking them up at $5-10 each raw. I also like the Mosaic Silvers, the Mosaic Silver Prism. They have some surface issues. They're kind of tricky to get good surfaces, but again, you can get really good players, whether it be AD or Booker or Kawhi, at really good prices on those Mosaic Silver Prisms. I have delved into, and I'll be honest, I'm not super passionate about soccer cards, but more and more people are talking about it. And my sister-in-law is a college soccer coach. And so she's been talking to me about it too. Premier League soccer and watching all these tournaments and trying to kind of get me into it. So I've been looking also at 2014 Prism soccer, because that's the first Prism set for soccer. And it's crazy that, a box of 2014 Prism soccer is $6,000. And then when you go on eBay and you look at the singles and it's like blue Prisms are $20 for like, star players. I'm like, what's wrong with this picture? So I'm not saying I'm going hard in on soccer cards, but it's intrigued me enough to where I'm buying up a little bit and I'm trying to learn as much as I can.
Yeah, there's so much upside with soccer. And I feel like if you're into soccer, why this is the time, and this is the best angle you have, because most people are obsessed with basketball. I've been looking at hockey just because I like hockey and I knew more about it before all this. But anything that has a card nowadays, I mean, there's celebrity cards, there's like I mean, obviously Pokemon cards, there's everything is now reaching record high prices. So I would say soccer has to have the most upside. And I mean, we don't have to spend much time there, just because I feel like if you're into soccer, go with soccer cards. Just look into it. If you're not, then what's the point? It'd be like making a job out of a hobby. But let's talk about Bill's question here. Do you buy packs, boxes, or just singles?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably 95 to 97% singles. About 5% packs or boxes, and I'll do that. To open them with my son or my daughter. And I did do a couple of box breaks. I bought a box of 2016 Optic basketball because they're not very expensive, and I wanted to do a break on the channel and just kind of mix in some. So I wanted to open some packs. I did. One of my subscribers sent me a couple of packs of '89 Fleer basketball. Open those, but I wouldn't say that I'm buying a lot of packs. I just feel like with the cost of product nowadays on the secondary market, when I look at the cost of singles, I'm just like, man, I can just get the players I want right there instead of having to buy the packs. I love ripping. I get ripping wax, and I understand the draw to it, but just financially, I've got kids, and I have to kind of watch that. I have kind of a guy that we both talked to, Ziggy No. He's got his own channel, but he's kind of opened my eyes. Actually, last week on your show, to actually being able to break boxes with some strategy. Because to be honest, before last week's show, I just looked at breaking as just pure gambling. But after kind of talking to him more, kind of hearing that, it opened my eyes to, okay, maybe there's something to that. So maybe next year I'll take a look at some breaks. But as of for 2020, I'll mostly buy singles.
Yeah, it's funny because I never even considered buying sealed wax, buying any packs, or breaks, just because I was like, this is the fun gambling side, and I just wrote it off. And I even thought, okay, there's some strategy to it, but there's no way it could be better than a strategy of going after singles, because in my mind, that was the story I said. It was like, all right, I go after the singles. This is what I want, not realizing all the different ways that breaks can be set up so that you're pretty much doing the same thing. In terms of breaking for the station, that's the only thing that intrigues me, is breaking to put it out here and then land an amazing card for someone that's watching, because I get to open up your Christmas presents. I want to experience Christmas. You can have the gift. I just want to open the present. And something that, I'll see about in the future. I did have one idea, which I thought would be really cool, which is breaking a box of football or basketball or something with a couple of us on here that knew that sport. And then when the pack is open, we could all pick the card that we like the most of it, or kind of do a Fox NFL Sunday type of Monday morning quarterback situation of someone else's box. So that's an idea I have, just because I feel like that'd be a good entertainment value, good investment strategies, different ones based on the cards that come out. But I just invested in my first sealed wax about a week ago, and I'm not going to say what it is. I'll do a video on it, but it's something where, the cool thing is when you study the trends of, okay, if LeBron James's card is going up to this amount and these players are the next tier, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Luka, and the others, and then you say, okay, I see where this is going. What is the price of sealed wax? How many packs come in a box? How many cards per pack? What's the print run? You can actually invest in sealed wax with that other knowledge. And so I will say it is football that I bought. It was football, and it was I think 10 boxes, which was, for me, was huge. But I feel very confident in it, and I'll do a video going over all that stuff in the future.
Well, yeah, I mean, you just saw a case of 86 Fleer basketball sell for almost $2 million. So, I mean, and there's guys that swear by, I know there's a lot of people that only invest in sealed wax, or, it's 90% sealed wax and 10% singles.
Well, I think the beauty, what I found with the sealed wax that intrigued me is that I don't have to know. Like, if I know what trends are happening, not necessarily, well, okay, it's 2016, how's the draft class doing? But more like, okay, it's 2016 optic. What's the response from investors and collectors towards this year? And then say, all right, I don't even care what the rookies were like, because people seem to love the main stars. I think the first year of a sealed wax, and that's what I did, at least. I was like, the first year is great, because what I found is that a lot of the prices were set based on the rookies of that year. But when the first year top performers, top athletes are going up and up and up, now all of a sudden the prices set were low because they were set based on, well, the rookies didn't really pan out. So it's kind of interesting where you can find that gap.
It's funny that you say that, because a year ago, you know, the strategy was exactly what you're saying. It's like, well, how is that rookie class going to pan out? You know, and the reason for that is, if you're looking at football cards, the Drew Brees and the Tom Brady and the Roethlisberger cards that were not rookie cards, those hadn't hit yet. So that all that stuff was cheap. All the vets, nobody was buying those. So that there was, I mean, and so now that's where, you know, you see like those are kind of where the values are, because you know, it's just been a shift. You know, it's been a shift where you're not necessarily only looking at the rookies, you're looking at, you know, those vets and, you know, and their jerseys, and is it a first year uni of a player or whatever? There's so many other factors now. It's wild.
Yeah, it's so cool because it's not as simple as when we were kids. There's so many angles, and like, you know, now that NBA playoffs is going on, and I'm selling a ton of football cards right now. I've sold Tyreek Hill, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, like wide receivers that I picked up for like $2, $4, selling for 25. And I'm like, man, like it's so hard to tell that
it's awesome.
A $4 card 2 months ago is now $25 and then being marked up to 40, and it will probably sell because we're still a month away. But I will say, like, the more I see the first year jersey work in certain players, or the first year of this or first year that, I think like it's cool because there's a lot of avenues to go down, and only invest $1 to $5 on a base card that could literally turn to $15. And so like you could literally buy 10 base mosaic Kevin Durant cards for like $1.50 each, and they could be $9 at the beginning of next season. They could be $10.
Yeah.
The LeBrons are now up to about $30 on ComC, and I paid $7.50 a piece. And I was like second guessing myself, like $7.50 for a base card of LeBron. And you know, it's like, it's a good looking card, but now 30, 40, $50 is what it's being listed for. I think the highest sale was about like $34.
No, you make a great point there, because it's like, you know, and I think you and I probably think the same way. It's like, do I want to spend $1,000 because I think this card is going to go to $2,000, or do I want to buy a bunch of $1 cards that could turn into $15 cards, and that's 15 times my money, as opposed to just doubling my money with, because you're tying up a lot of capital in a $1,000 card. I mean, I just the most expensive cards that I just bought recently, and it was 2 optic Luka PSA 10s. And they were $600 each. And that hurt me a little bit. I put it on a credit card too, you know, to where like I stretched it a little bit. But it was just because it was like that FOMO thing of like, if I don't buy this card, is this going to be a $5,000 card in 6 months? Like, you know.
You know, it's funny because like only being a couple, what's up, Les, Alex? What's funny is that I'm still used to thinking cards can't be this much. Like it can't be this valuable, because as a kid, I was collecting for years and years. So in my mind, it was always like, okay, well, it's a Michael Jordan autographed, whatever. Of course, it's $80, right? And then now this is a base card of a player that's been in the league for 9 years, and it's going for $35, $40. And it's hard because even now my mindset is a lot more, how much can this go down? The first question I ask myself is, how much can this go down? Before how much can it go up? Because I know it could go up to $50, $100, $1,000, whatever. But I go, you know what? This $4 card, it's 2020. Inflation is ridiculous. Can that really go down? And so I feel a lot more comfortable buying these $3 cards that can go up to 10, rather than a $1,000 card that can go up to 3,000. Just because I think to myself, man, $1,000, like you can buy a lot of stuff, like real world stuff, for $1,000. What if that goes down to 300? And it's like one of those things where week by week, getting more knowledgeable as to how things work, what is the bottom, gives me more, I guess, peace of mind. But it's still, with so many people entering and so much money in the system and so many other factors, I'm still really hesitant to pull the trigger on these cards that are more than really about $100. Because I just think, what if like everyone in here is just in it for the money, is putting it on their credit cards, is like relying on that next sale to propel them and to like bail them out of this situation or get them out of this hole. And if that doesn't work, then they're out, and then that money's all gone. And then I'm stuck with a card that I paid $500 for that's now worth $75. So that's like, and I think that's been part of my strategy, is like, let me wait for this craziness to settle. Like maybe December, after the election, after all this, see who is staying, see people that have lost money for the first time, if they're still staying and doing it, or if they've moved on to something else. Maybe Gary Vee's talking about like another hobby or another thing he's really cool about or bullish on, and money goes there. But like until then, I just feel like nervous. And I've dropped about over 15,000 in the last couple months, but a lot of like really low end cards.
Yeah. That's smart though. And I think that's what makes it fun, is you don't have to buy expensive cards to see the appreciation. I think it would be far less fun if you had to buy that $100 card and hope that it gets to 200, but you've seen it to where it's like, you can buy that $1 card and it turns into a $20 card and you made 20 times your money. You know, it's fun.
Yeah. And I feel like the return, the only thing is that when you buy the $1 cards, you have to sell a lot of them, right? The $1 card can go up to $8 or $9, but you also have to sell 100 of them to really get that same return. And then you don't have that long-term desirability of, okay, a collector of this player, there's only 13 or I don't know, 12 of these cards ever made, or 100 or whatever, and that's it. And when it's like a dollar base card that goes up to 8, there could be like 8,000 of them printed. I'm like, well, is it really going to remain a good investment if all this money leaves and these people leave, when there's so many of them in stock? And I feel like these lower end cards are just more of a currency for a player. Like, I just have stock in this player. Here's my penny stock. It's $1 card, versus, okay, I'm a diehard fan. What will it take for me to get this card?
Yeah.
All right. So going forward, let's talk a bit about NBA playoffs, what you've seen, what intrigues you at the moment, because watching basketball for the first time in years, like really watching, I've noticed a lot of interesting things, but I want to get your take. What are you noticing about the NBA playoffs so far?
I mean, the thing that's popped out to me the most is the lack of defense. You know, it looks like I was watching the Mavs. I can't remember. Mavs Rockets last week, and at half it was 85-75. You know, I mean, it was like, and I know the Mavs are not a great defensive team, but you see that around the league where the scoring is just off the charts. So I don't know if that's just a function of guys are rested and coming back and, you know, ready to roll, or they're just like, like, let's just do our thing. I don't know, but I'm really intrigued just how. I think the one thing I really question.
Y'all got that right?
Can you hear me?
We kind of lost. I lost you for a second. I don't know if anyone else lost you. What was that? One more time.
All right.
You're like my biggest.
My biggest success. I did that on purpose. I just cut the feed.
Yeah. The one thing you guys have got to know to make a lot of money in this hobby is
like the Truman Show or something. But I'm really curious to see, like, the Mavs, for example, they're going to face probably the Clippers or the Lakers round one. And I guess my question is, if the Clippers bounce them in 5 games, is Luka going to take a dip, because, or Porzingis for that matter, or Tim Hardaway or any of these other guys. And I'm just using the Mavs as an example, or any of these teams, or, are they going to hold strong? And then the other part of that is, I guess we have, the NBA season starts back up in December. It's going to be kind of a shortened off season because of this COVID thing, so maybe there's enough kind of hype coming up to that next season to where, everything kind of holds on. But again, we're talking about, compared to all the other variables, COVID money, bankruptcies, the economy, the election, there's a million other factors, but But yeah, no, it's been interesting. I think that the one thing that weirds me out the most are the digital fans. I want to know how
I
I can
love it. I thought that was cool. You don't like it?
Well, can the players see the digital fans, or is that just something for us? Because I feel like the players would be like, "What the heck, man? That's like so weird." You know?
That's a good question. Actually, if you know if the players can see it, put it in the comment section because I assume they could because I could, but I don't know about the technology if it's like hologram or if it's. I was thinking like, why not just put an iPad in every seat and then just sell all the seats for like $2 and give it to charity as like and actually fill the whole arena with iPads around there where people can actually have their face viewed. But when they did that, I thought that was great.
I think that's going to be the future of sports. I think it'll be like a VR goggle type thing where you pay $2,000 and you have like front row, courtside, seats or whatever. Because, people are I think that people will want to go to games, but as that technology gets better, I could totally see that happening. It's like if you can sit in your living room and be courtside with all those guys and it's just, you put your goggles on, we'll never go to work again. We'll be in like Costa Rica on our like VR goggles,
Yeah, it's but I'll be honest, I miss going to games, so I hope I'd be able to. But also, when prices get outrageous, and then you go, I can get a big screen TV, I can watch all the games. I need to watch more than one game because now I have cards and players I'm investing in. I can't just be watching this one game in person because it's hard to be a fan of one team now compared to 15 years ago when we didn't have fantasy football and all these other options. I want to answer this question for Donald. I'm going to be going into graded myself, but I've been focusing on raw. And the reason is because starting off, I would find a lot of raw cards that were $2 to $5 that easily became worth 10 to 20 that I feel like weren't graded because they were cheap cards and people didn't want to bother with it. So this first couple months, I've been doing raw cards because that added upside. I could always sell raw, but I could also grade and sell and make even more money. But as those lower end cards get bought up by other investors and more graded cards flood the system, and it'll be less of like population of 50 when really there's 8,000 of them at PSA waiting to come back, I'll get more into graded cards. But what's your perspective there, Dustin?
Yeah, I started out really only buying PSA 10s. Because my thinking was like people only want PSA 10s. That was, and this was, a couple of years back. Now I did buy some vintage stuff. I got a couple of Michael Jordan cards that were, BGS 8s and stuff like that. But just because I wanted those particular cards, but I started off buying, and they weren't super expensive PSA 10s. But I wasn't buying any veterans really at all. I was coming in. I was trying to buy, Jaren Jackson Jr. I was really just trying to speculate on rookies. And then, as everything became more popular, as the card industry really got hot, then I was thinking like, veterans are starting to heat up, prices are starting to go up. And then I was looking at like Steph Curry, for example, is one of those guys where I just feel really strongly about Steph because he's already won 3 titles. Nobody really talks about him. He's not in any sort of GOAT conversation. There will be a documentary down the road on the Warriors. There's no way there's not going to be, I don't think. To me, he's a generational type player that changed the way that the game was played with the 3-point shot. Before Steph Curry, there wasn't really that 3-point strategy in the same way that was implemented after, the Splash Brothers hit the scene. So, Steph Curry is one of those guys I love, and I'll buy all years, of him. Now I have shifted to more raw lately because first off, grade has just gotten so expensive. Number one. Number two, I just feel like there are a lot of values in those vet players, and so that's where I've been going a lot of. I've been doing less of the Jaren Jackson Jr. type guys and more of the, Kawhis and the Devin Bookers and the Porzingis, and kind of like what you said, Brad, with, buying base cards for $1. I'm looking at it as like people have very short memory and everyone wants it now. Everyone wants everything to happen now. So, to me, I'm thinking LeBron's going to be in the league for 2 more years. In my opinion, he's going to be elite for this season, next season, and maybe one more season. But in reality, you have to look at kind of that next set of players. Devin Booker's 23 years old. He's got another 10 years, assuming he doesn't get injured. The Kawhi's 29. Kawhi is 29 years old. I mean, he's got 5 years left in the league, if not more. If
Probably more, yeah.
Hurt. So you kind of have to look. For me, I'm looking at, and then I look at Luka Porzingis, and I can totally see. I'm hoping for NBA Finals between Giannis and Luka battling it out in the finals. I think that would be awesome. But I'm kind of looking at that next generation of who are going to be those guys after LeBron.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a couple points that you brought up, which I mean, for me, I try and look at everything as macro as possible. I want to see the movements of all the parts, because if I can understand the movements from the biggest scope, I can then have the best perspective. And so now while the NBA playoffs is going on and I'm watching Luka have a monster game, which that was my first Luka game I saw. And I was like, I forgot there was no fans in the stadium because I was so enamored by his style of play. Not only his skill set, but his style was just so cool, so much fun to watch. But then I say, God, man, everyone's looking at Luka, and for good reason. Zion, here's the thing. I used to play Madden. Did you ever play Madden?
I haven't played in a while, but I was an addict. Yeah, I love Madden.
Okay, so do you remember the create a player feature in Madden?
Where you can make yourself like 400 pounds and jack.
So I would make a wide receiver like 350 pounds, but have extremely high speed and agility. And when I saw Zion play, I was like, that kind of reminds me of when I would create a player, and his movement is too quick for someone of that size. Like it's just like, you shouldn't play that way based on your physique. And then I'm looking at Bol, where I'm like, dude, you were just like, if you don't believe in body types, look at Zion and then look at Bol. Body types are a thing. You can't just do the same workout or eat the same diet. I noticed something weird growing out of Dwight Howard's head, and something missing, like a little chia pet growing out of Dwight Howard's head. And then LeBron's balding pattern reminds me of like those medieval movies where like the king has an advisor, and the advisor is always like this guy with a big beard, but is balding there with like a little ring of hair. But like, since watching NBA consistently 10 years ago, or like, I'd say like 2012, and now watching now, I'm like, wow, a lot has changed. But you mentioned Steph Curry, and I go, wow, what is everyone focusing on? And I think to myself, Steph Curry's not mentioned, Kevin Durant's not mentioned. Guys that the beginning of next year, when they say teams to look out for, when they say, who has the biggest chip on their shoulder, it's like Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. And those are guys that I would rather buy now and be extra early than be a bit too late. And I'm okay doing that because, like, there's opportunity cost. I could invest in other players and maybe get in on those guys at the same price or a similar price closer to next season. But one purchase I just made on eBay, just to share with you guys, was, and it was like a bit of a gamble, but it's, not much. It's 130 raw mosaic Steph Curry cards I got for $150 after everything. Nice. I think it was 130 or 140, but it was about $1.40 each or $1.30 each. And I said, you know what, man, maybe I could just sell the same lot 2 weeks before NBA season for $500, $600, or I can sell a couple of them. But like you said, Steph Curry, you watch him and you go, dude, you shouldn't have even been in the league. You're too small. You're like, you have guys like LeBron, like these physical freaks of nature in the league, like Zion, and this guy can just shoot. He could just shoot. He can handle. And because of that, what kid would not be inspired by watching Steph Curry play? And I feel like, you got guys like Cam Newton who have a chip on their shoulder. You have that, all you need to do is get signed for them to see spikes in their prices. Guys like Kevin Durant, who, everyone's saying you'll never be the same guy, that has a huge chip on their shoulder. And I don't know if it'll actually pan out or not, but the hype sometimes is enough, right? If there's hype around those teams going into next year, hey, that's a good time to sell. Go sell when the hype is there, and then Kevin Durant twists his ankle, breaks his ankle first game of next season. It doesn't matter because you've already sold when the hype was its highest. So that's a bit of my mindset right now. We're closing in on an hour, but I want to look here and answer a couple of your questions. Anything else that you've noticed or anything else on your mind at this point?
As far as cards or sports?
Life in general.
Life. Kids are
Cake.
hard. Kids are really hard. I'm just kind of like, honestly, like they're going back to, we're putting them in private school because the schools haven't opened, like they haven't opened in North Carolina. So we're actually paying like a lot of money for them to go to private school so that we can just, work, have a life and be able to do it. But it's been a lot of fun having them home, but we've kind of reached that point where it's like, man, we need you guys need school really bad.
Yeah, parents need school. Parents need kids to have school more than kids need school.
Yeah, my wife and I was like, we're going to need to send them to boarding school. Like, if they never open the schools again, we're going to need to send them like to Europe. I mean, like we're going to have to figure something out.
Dude, I mean, I hope for everyone's sake that kids have some sort of school because that would suck. We had a question here about college football is being canceled. How's that going to affect the NFL? I hope to God NFL will play. I believe the amount of money and protocol in there that they will give it their best shot. And I feel like football is happening unless something disastrous happens because, the other sports can prove it. Obviously, it's a bit different with so many players in football, but it's also not that long of a sport when you think about it. Like September through December is not that long for a whole season. So I feel like there's enough reasons for them to do everything they can to make it work. And worst case scenario, they have to postpone or cancel. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think just, you have to look at the commissioner, I think, for each sport. And Roger Goodell is a money-making machine for his ownership. And I think it would take like an act of God, which I guess you could say COVID is somewhat of an act of God, but 2 acts of God to get Roger Goodell to shut the season down. Honestly, I think that if enough players had opted out, if you had like half the league opt out or something, then they would maybe look to shut it down. But unless there's just a massive outbreak where teams are getting nailed with it, I think they'll try to push through and just try to salvage as much as they can.
Yeah, I agree. And also the players that have opted out so far have had reasons to do so. It's not like we have Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady and Drew Brees and faces of the league opting out and pushing for a canceled season. If they push for a canceled season, they put pressure on the teams and the owners, we may have a different story. But right now, like Tom Brady was getting in trouble for practicing when he shouldn't have been. So I like that. I'm like, good. We want our top competitors to be in it and be safe. Obviously, they've got to be safe for the league to have a shot. But until the big name quarterbacks opt out or mention something like that, I don't think that's going to be happening unless a huge outbreak happens, in which case postpone. And still, if they have to do a 12-game season, if they have to do a 10-game, I think they will do what they can to have it work. Any interest in UFC cards?
I don't have any. And this is one where, I want to zag as much as I can or zig to the zag or whatever it is. But if I was a huge UFC fan and I really knew UFC, then maybe I would. I even thought I sent out to Flippin' Steve is a guy that he has a channel too. I'm sure you've seen his stuff too. But I shot him out. I shot him out a Mia Hamm rookie card. Because I'm like, hey, soccer cards are hot. I found a Mia Hamm rookie card for $75 and a PSA 9. And it's like, she's arguably the best female soccer player ever, U.S. soccer player. So I don't know. But I guess my point is with UFC cards, it's like, I mean, I found a box of like Ninja Turtle cards. I found a box of like Dick Tracy cards I had when I was a kid. Do I think that everything is gonna go up though? No, I don't think that it will. So I mean, if you really like UFC, if you really, if that's something you really enjoy collecting, and maybe if it appreciates, great. But for me, it's just I'm not there with it to where I think that it's. I mean, but who knows? I mean, maybe the card market will get so broad it'll touch all of those things. It's just I don't know. I'm not zagging that hard yet.
Yeah, it's funny because my first month or two, I was going on ComC and just looking at what non-sports cards are there. I bought home improvement trading cards, like foil, Tim Allen. And I was like,
Tim Allen rookie cards.
Yeah, Tim Allen rookie card. But it was personal. But I was also like, you know what? It could, like at right now, anything could. I was buying Simpsons cards. I said, Simpsons is a global brand that has way more fans than any individual player. And there were Simpsons cards from the 90s. And I think the one I got was a couple, like it was only a couple of years ago, and I think it's by Topps, but it was limited to 223 of this card. So I was like $8. I said, it's a Simpsons card. The brand Simpsons is huge. Anything I think has a chance as long as there's interest in that field. And I have no idea specifically with UFC, but man, if there was a piece of the glove, match worn glove, if there's like a chipped tooth that's on the card or like a dot of blood, that'd be pretty cool. Like, oh, this is Conor McGregor's blood. Like, here it is. Hey, you know what? Someone would definitely pay for that. I don't know if they're doing that on cards, but Federico, real quick, because I take so damn long per bite, it would be like, all right, Dustin, you got the next 30 minutes, and I would just savor every bite because I don't rush this. And so I wouldn't be able to answer the questions. But trust me, like in an hour, this is going down.
It'll take me 45 minutes to eat this Pop-Tart.
Yeah. One lick at a time. Just lick the icing off. Let's see what else we got here. By the way, Brandon Chung, dude, this guy's awesome, and he has a great station and knows a lot about soccer cards too. So if you're into soccer, definitely check out Brandon's station there. What else? Kyrie. You know, it's funny. I was investing in Kyrie Irving without even knowing too much about why he's not liked and things like that. I just knew, all right, good scorer, had a championship ring. He has acting chops, right? And so I actually sold my first Kyrie Irving rookie card today on CompC. I think it was a Panini Brilliance Starburst, like which one of their parallels. But
nice.
Thoughts on Kyrie Irving?
Yeah, I've been buying some Kyrie Irving. So I probably got a dozen or so. The ones I've got are specifically, I've got optic inserts. They're optic stargazing, and they're numbered. So they've got them like blue numbered out of 49. They've got red ones out of 99. But they're literally like 10 or 15 bucks. And I'm buying his first year Nets jersey. You know, that's all I'm buying for Kyrie. And I'm not holding them. That's strictly a flip. You know, as soon as the Nets kind of, I'm assuming that the Nets are going to have some good spots. I don't know if they're going to win the East or anything next year, but I'm assuming that they're going to have some good games together, him and Durant, and I'll look to sell off at that point. He's not a long-term hold for me. It's just a strictly like, you know, a buy and sell, and probably, you know, 6 months or so.
And the same thing here where I want to be able to sell before they even play in a way. Like my thing is, all right, I want you to be proven for one, so that I feel good if you were to play. But if I can have that upside of selling before the season starts, just like all the Chris Godwin, the Mike Evans, the Tom Brady, the Gronk, that's just the Bucks, not even the Tyreek Hills and all the others where I say, who are the people talking about as these guys should break out? Because if the fantasy football people in their world are like, these are the people to draft, the people, the commentators for the NBA, these are the teams to watch out for. We expect these teams to make the biggest jump next year and reach the playoffs. If we're all hearing that, that's where we're going to invest, because it's like, hey, I want to be one step ahead. But sometimes me being one step ahead is saying, okay, well, let me buy that now, because most investors, a month before the season starts, that's when they'll start getting in. So I could even sell at a profit to investors that are early by being super early. At least that's the way I'm thinking. And you mentioned one thing about how I think outside the box with Colin Kaepernick and guys like that. Part of it is that I live in LA. So everywhere I go, there's actually Colin Kaepernick posters. There's Black Lives Matter everywhere. All the billboards, I remember in Tampa, you see billboards driving down. It's literally funeral home and did you get hit by a drunk driver? Let us sue them. Like, it's all attorneys and like funeral homes on the billboards. Here in LA, it's this show streaming on HBO, this show on Netflix. So my lens is a lot more tuned to the entertainment side. So that was one reason why I got into Gronk. I said, oh, dude, this guy's an entertainer. He's like, he has so much potential after football. Another reason why I think constantly about Space Jam coming out next summer. I'm like, who's in Space Jam? LeBron, Klay Thompson, Damian Lillard, a couple of guys. I say, you know what? They could have the worst year ever. Next summer comes out, the movie to watch is going to be Space Jam 2, right? Yeah. So to me, that's the Olympics. I'm thinking, what Olympic cards can I go out and buy right now for next summer? Because maybe it's a Steph Curry Olympic card and it will go up when he comes back to the league and has a great year, or he doesn't, but then the Olympics are there and he shines. You know, maybe he's on Team USA again and he shines there. So I feel like, for me at least, I want several insurance policies. Like, I'm too risk averse to be like, if he sucks, I lose my money. It needs to be, well, if he doesn't have a good time, if he doesn't perform well now, what's going to happen 3 months later, and then 6 months, and then a year, and then how much can the card go down? So
yeah. That's what happened to me last year. For football cards a year ago, I was buying Mason Rudolph rookie cards and Will Greer rookie cards. And it was kind of like, hey, man, if these guys get the start, then you can double your money. And it's like, there's too much risk there. Now I would never do that. I would never buy a quarterback now that's, second or third string that could get in. There's too many other opportunities now.
One thing too, you mentioned Mia Hamm a bit ago, and I saw someone else. Yeah, a couple, David and Brandon talk about Mia Hamm. And it's funny because one pattern I've noticed, I don't know, oh, that's someone else, is female athletes overall. And I think the reason is that because I'm seeing a lot of dads bonding with their daughters with female sports cards. Like there's been a few of you guys that have said, I have been opening boxes of WNBA cards with my daughter. And like for me, WNBA never really did anything for me. Like, I don't know, I'm NBA. I don't even like college basketball, but it's just like, doesn't really do much for me. But if I had a daughter that was interested in basketball, I for sure would be watching. And what a great way to bond with your daughter over something that connects the two. Like, all right, here's sports and here's a card or a toy or something like that, a collectible. What are your thoughts about female, like let's just say females getting into collecting and investing, as well as the female cards?
Well, watch out. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's already booming. And I would say, and I'm only using the example, if I look at my channel audience, I think you've mentioned this on your channel too. It's like 99% males. I don't have, there's
98.2.
And I think that, I think the 0.5 that I've got is like my wife and my, my sisters. But, so there's not that many females that are, that are involved, at least that we know of. But yeah, I mean, I think back to when I was a kid and like everybody was collecting. And it's like, what happens if it really, really goes mainstream and we already have a lack of product out there? So, I mean, it'll be really interesting to see. Yeah, females get in if more. I think there's a lot of guys too out there that, are thinking about getting in, or maybe that, I think there's a lot of guys too that just haven't caught on to it. Actually, it was funny. I had a buddy that randomly texted me out of the blue, and he sent me another one of his friends had texted him like, hey, I had these Michael Jordan cards that I bought 2 years ago for $100 that are now worth $1,000. And he was texting me out of the blue. I hadn't told him anything about my channel, nothing. And he was like, hey, have you heard about sports cards? Like, are you onto this? Like, what's the deal? So it's wild. Yeah. I don't know. Sky's the limit. I don't want to sound like, we have to be careful, obviously, but it's, you never know.
I mean, look, right now we don't know. We don't know how far this can spread, but I feel like the more intangibles that are there, like the bonding, the fun, the connection, all that, the more sustainability we'll have after whatever drops off. After the people that aren't in it for the long run drop off, there'll be a long-term base, in my opinion, because I'm having fun and I don't have to make money. I need to break even with everything going on to be dedicated like this. But a lot of people, their threshold is I need to make a lot of money or I'm out. And other people, I don't care. I just want to collect and have fun. And I feel like when you have the connection, the son and daughter, or the father and daughter, a mother, son, father, son, whatever it is, you're having a very powerful intangible that goes way beyond the cards. And even if it's like I'll scale down because I'm losing money, so I can't invest or collect that much. That's very important. I don't know about this Porzingis Topps Chrome. I don't know if you've seen that or heard of that one before, but might want to check that out. That was Harry calling you out.
Yeah, I'm all about the unicorn. I'll have to take a look at that. Thanks, Harry.
And let's see. Yeah, that's about it. I'll look. There's so many comments. So this is amazing how you guys have been on here. Hogan, yeah, wrestling cards for sure. I think wrestling cards. You know what? Rui. I was looking up Rui because I was like, who is this guy? Obviously, I'm getting back into basketball, and I see his last name. What's it? Kuchimura or like. And I'm like, this guy sounds Japanese. And I look him up. Oh, he's Japanese. And then I thought to myself, Olympics. I literally thought to myself, Olympics. Giannis, I don't know if he played for Greece, but I'm like, who is that one star for the team that could face the USA team in the finals? Who's that number 2 team? Well, that would be the player that would intrigue me the most because, it'd be like one superstar and then a bunch of like not scrubs, but just like the lower level players versus Team USA, at least expected in the finals. So I'd be looking there as to who could really do some damage.
Yeah, I wonder
All
too
right,
if that's the big push for soccer. You know, with the Euros and then you have World Cup 2022. It's just right around the corner. So I do kind of wonder if a lot of the soccer buildup is leading up to that World Cup that's coming up.
you know, but yeah, it's going to be a really busy summer next year, and I have no idea what to expect just because we're going to have all the sports going on now, and then when this is over, are we going to just have? I have to work out the schedule. Are we going to have nothing? Like literally a period where there's no sports again, and it's just hype for several months, and then all the sports, or how is it going to be calibrated after this year? But regardless, we're gonna have to sign off at some point. But this is amazing. The content here and the Tiger Woods rookie card for sure. I saw Hulk Hogan. I saw Vince McMahon. Dude, it's like if people have interest in it, Tony Hawk.
Oh yeah, Tony Hawk. That's a good one.
Dude, yeah, Tony Hawk. I mean, and again, that goes back to the video game because I know Tony Hawk more for the video game, where I feel like his skateboard had like 300 horsepower because he does like one little step and he's going 65 miles an hour and he can do like a 900 right there. But it's just like Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah, people are looking for goats. You know, Tony Hawk's the goat of skateboarding. You know, I mean, everyone's looking for goats.
That's it. Okay, guys, I think we're gonna head off. Thank you so much for joining. What for one, you have your station, the Personal Finance Dad, which everyone should know and check out. Any other parting words? Any other links that people you want to direct them to?
Yeah, I mean, it's sad. I don't even know my handles. I think that my Instagram is just the Personal Finance Dad. And then my Twitter is invest_in_cards if you want to check me out there. But yeah, I come out with daily videos on YouTube if you haven't seen me before. So hang with me. Thanks for sticking with me. And I know a lot of the people that have been in the chat too. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, man. The coolest part about all this, and I appreciate you guys, is this has been way more of a community than I ever thought.
True.
I did not think this would be a community feel where it's like the same guys on here shooting the shit, drinking beer before you eat cake, before you eat your Pop-Tart on a Tuesday night. And I thought this would be a lot more transactional, but guys, you make this awesome because my highlight is not the cake, even though the cake looks amazing. My highlight is doing this with you guys. So I appreciate y'all. I will see you in the next video. Make sure to check Dustin out, the Personal Finance Dad. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, guys.